You're listening to the Conscious Her podcast. Today, I'll be sharing with you what Spirit has communicated to me with regards to their insight on how you can better make sense of your grieving journey and what you need to know about your recently passed loved ones right now. I also share 3 easy tips on how you can easily connect with your past loved ones in the spirit realm. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Kimberly Morrow, and you're listening to the Conscious Her podcast. The Conscious Her is an accessible online platform and community of conscious women that are empaths, highly sensitive people, and intuitives who are both curious and passionate about spiritual and energetic self-development. As a professional psychic medium, spiritual guide and mentor, intuitive energy healer, and channel for over 5 years now, I dedicate my life to reconnecting energetically sensitive women to the divine within themselves so that they can live the most fulfilling, rewarding, and transformational life possible by remembering who they are and why they're here. If you're looking to learn how to leverage and apply your incredible energetic gifts in your personal and professional life and utilize your intuition and sensitivity as your personal superpowers, this podcast is for you. So let's dive into today's discussion right now. Hey, beautiful light being, and welcome to the Conscious Her podcast. Today, I've got a different type of episode for you, and I hope that it is something that many people can take comfort, peace, and reassurance in. Today, we're talking about some beautiful pieces of wisdom and insight that has come through from the spirit realm regarding the grieving process and what your spirit guides want you to know about your recently passed loved ones. So regardless of where you are on your grieving journey right now, I hope that this is going to give you something to hold on to. As a medium, I have a very different perspective of what you would call quote unquote death or the deceased, which are such harsh and heavy words that I really don't like using at all. This is because they are incredibly inaccurate and suggestively finite as well. And as a medium, I have interacted with many souls who have crossed over to the spirit realm. So I have a very clear understanding that life does not end when the physical body is no longer inhabited and here with us. Because of this and a few other reasons, one of which I'll explain later, I do not have the same type of fear around this concept of death, and nobody should. I have also personally come very close to dying, so I have another perspective there too. I've also interacted with my own past loved ones numerous times, and every time it happens, it's a beautiful experience. I have a grandparent and a pet that visit me regularly, and all I have to do is think about them, talk about them, or ask them to be there, and they come around pretty quickly. Part of the reason why I teach others to channel their spirit guides, communicate with the spirit realm, tap into source energy, and understand divine expression is because in doing this, you also learn how to reconnect with your past loved ones. It's a natural byproduct of that. And for many of my students, that is one of their goals with my programs, and rightly so. Another part of the reason why I teach all of this is to help others open up to remember and reawaken to the divine within themselves so that they come back to this unity consciousness and they connect to the divine in others, whether they are here with us in the earth plane or on the astral plane. It's about understanding that we are all connected at all times. We are all from the same source. Many of us grow up with certain prominent beliefs around life and death. And these are specific interpretations of both, and for many, religion does play a part in that. So some of us have this societal conditioning, a culture, belief system, indoctrination, programming, and so forth about what it means after your physical body, air quote, dies. And many of us grow up with this belief that once somebody dies, that's it. You just become nothing and fade into the eternal, deep, dark abyss. So I'm not going to try and create a compelling argument about what's right or wrong or what's true versus untrue, because I honor and respect the fact that everybody has their own truth and can choose to believe what they want to believe. All I can do is present to you my experiences, what spirit has communicated to me, what I have read a lot about, and what I believe. You can agree or disagree at any time, and you can choose not to listen to me and think I'm a complete quack while you're at it. It doesn't matter to me either way. My only hope is to shift your perspective and to give you peace of mind with what I am going to share with you today. And if you're listening to this right now, I'm pretty sure you're going to be fairly open-minded to it all. So the first very basic thing I want to start out with here before we get into spirit's wisdom is about quantum physics or metaphysics. I believe we are going to have so much more discovery around this in this century than the mind can possibly comprehend at this point. What we know is that everything in the universe is made up of energy, frequency, and vibration, including you and I, and including anything physical you see here on the 3D physical Earth plane. And the one thing we know about energy is that it cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. We know that everything in the 3D physical human realm is in a lower dimension and has very heavy, dense, slow-moving vibration. And we know that higher dimensions have a much higher, light, flowing, fast-moving vibration. Secondly, as human beings with limited brains and physical senses, we can only detect energy, frequencies, and wavelengths in very small ranges. Not only is this scientifically proven, but look at all the animals on Earth with so much more advanced capabilities to see, hear, smell, touch, sense, especially when they're hunting. So we know that our physical senses are by no means superior in any way. What I'm suggesting here is that while we're on the Earth plane in the 21st century, many of us are operating with an old 1995 Windows computer, trying to update it with the latest operating system of 2021. And many times it's just not going to work. It will crash. So you need to update and fine-tune the equipment before you can introduce new programming. And there's a lot of old, clunky programming out there that is completely outdated, especially when it comes to thinking expansively and openly about what's really going on. Our bodies and our mind are still very primitive and physical, while our minds and our consciousness that are non-physical are increasingly more advanced and aware or receptive than ever before, in modern history, of course. And we tend to let our primitive physical form create stories about what's real and what's not, and tell us what's possible for us and what's not, based on our extremely limited perspective. We let our ego do all of the talking for us, and we often give our egos more credibility than our minds. Now, our egos and our minds are both very powerful in their own way and can be very limiting in their own way. We need to know how to use them in harmony and balance with each other. But most people never get there. They let their ego run the show their entire lives. Thanks to our Western views on, air quotes, scientific rationality, we are still letting the ego run the show with the logic that something isn't real unless it is evidence-based or can be proven and repeatable in a laboratory. We also know that many times that our modern-day science has other agendas at play. Imagine that notion. So when we introduce this concept of life after death, people will often think that that's impossible and resist it because it conflicts with their belief systems, it goes against their religion, it's not, air quotes, scientifically proven, and they just can't comprehend that possibility. At the same time, most people believe in angels and angelic beings and are confident that their loved ones are watching over them. Us humans are so complex, aren't we? Okay, so we know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only change form. Secondly, we know that as human beings, we have extremely limited abilities to detect energy, frequency, and vibration with our physical senses, especially ones that are much higher than ours, that are much higher out of range than ours. So what am I saying? Firstly, I'm saying that your loved one has changed form, from a physical form to a non-physical form. Secondly, I'm saying that your physical senses as a human being are not built or equipped to detect the non-physical forms or frequencies or anything out of range of natural detection. Does that mean that what we physically experience is all that there is? Of course not. Of course not. I also want to mention something unique to my own experience on this. When I was in the ICU, or the intensive care unit in the hospital back in 2018, where I was literally fighting for my life with a septic infection caused by toxic shock syndrome, I became very conscious of the fact that my physical body was not the same as my mind. I could recognize that my mind and my consciousness was clear and alive and well, and that my physical body was failing. They are connected, but they are two different things, and they influence each other, of course. I recognized clearly that one is physical and one is not physical. I perceived a very clear separation between the two. I was very much aware of the fact that I was reliant on others to fix my body at that time, and I was praying that they would stabilize me, which they did. But during that time where I was so close, I had a very high level of awareness that is really difficult to explain. My point is that what I observed was almost from what felt like being outside of me. That my physical form was not attached to my non-physical form, and that if something tragic did happen to my physical form, that my non-physical form would still not be affected. This has also given me a lot of peace around death. And for everyone who does have those near-death experiences where they actually do flatline or are declared legally dead momentarily, and then they do come back to the physical, they can gain the same perspective. There are millions of people around the world who experience this. And just because we do not have the technology or knowledge or science to explain this, does it mean it didn't happen? That it's not real? Well, that's what our Western science says. Now, grasping the physical form versus the non-physical form, when it comes to grieving our past loved ones, is where we can experience some of the most pain and disbelief ever. Our physical form and ego operating in the physical world does not inherently understand the non-physical for many good reasons. Your brain and your physical form is desperate to justify or comprehend the passing of that person and how they could no longer physically be here. We want to make sense of the way they passed, when they passed, why they passed, sudden or not sudden. It just all hurts so badly. We're looking for logic, for reasoning, for understanding, for knowing, for truth that many times we can't get. Again, we've got these old primitive Windows 1995 machines that we're in, and they often struggle to grasp anything that's not like them. They want to reject anything that isn't like it. One of the most amazing things that I've heard from some angels that were helping me with a distant Reiki healing for a friend's grandmother who was coming close to her time and who was also desperately afraid of death was that they said, no one ever truly dies. They just change form. And when it comes to going back home to the spirit realm, we know it happens very quickly and naturally, just like taking a deep breath. Additionally, your spirit guides and oftentimes your relatives in spirit, your past loved ones, are there waiting to collect you on the other side when it does happen. I want you to remember and always remember that energy is constantly changing, shifting and expanding. And again, we are all energy. It's natural for you to change your form because you are a part of this universe or forward flowing movement. Even when you're in the physical form, your body changes constantly. You can physically see the change. You even recycle your DNA cells every 7 to 10 years for new cells. I know you're not the same person you were a year ago, let alone 7 years ago. And now many of us are actually receiving more advanced cellular changes and upgrades too from higher realms of consciousness. We talk about ascension symptoms and changes. Here you go. You're a continuous and evolving piece of art. So you have plenty of evidence of this in your everyday life. Not only are you going to change form physically, you're also going to change form non-physically because we are energetic beings. That's what we do. So recently I've had many people frantically messaging me and asking me to do a reading for them to help them get in touch with their recently deceased loved ones. This is completely understandable. I wholeheartedly understand this and empathize with them. The shock of their physical form no longer being present is so painful. I've also had a lot of people explain how upset they were that their recently passed loved ones are not yet sending signs to them or responding to them, and then they're distraught that something negative has happened to them as they have passed over. And this is actually what inspired my episode today. I was also inspired by a reading I did back in March for a very close friend of mine who recently lost her father. A week after he passed, she really wanted to know if he was okay, if he was there, if he was sending her signs, and so forth. And of course, I gladly did the reading for her, and Spirit provided some amazing wisdom to her. And I just thought that everyone who is grieving right now should hear this. So after I did that reading, I knew I needed to talk about it openly with others. So I wanted to use her story as the example for the wisdom I want to share with you today because I feel it is so extremely relatable. I want to point out, though, a couple of things first before we get into it. The first is that when you want to work with a medium so that you can connect to your past loved ones, I want you to know that you nor mediums can actually summon that person in spirit to show up for the reading. You can only send out an invitation and ask them to be there. This can leave people really disappointed. But you must know that you have free will while you're in the spirit realm, and you can choose or not choose to be there. And there's many reasons for that. So any medium that guarantees you that they can find that person in spirit and get them to show up for you is not being ethical or truthful. We can only ask, we cannot make guarantees. So knowing all of these things, I told my friend, I will try and I will work with my spirit team, but I cannot guarantee that your father will be there. And you know what? Her father was not there. He did not come to the reading. But I did get a lot of amazing communication through my spirit guides about her father that was incredibly comforting and beautiful. I also want you to know that your recently passed loved ones are usually not immediately available to you for communication right after they pass. And this has come up numerous times for me as a medium and simply just learning about it from the spirit world. There is a healing process that happens once you transcend to the spirit realm, and spirit talks about this often. There are also books written on this, plenty of books. Dolores Cannon, one of my favorite authors, also talks extensively about this. What Spirit had said to me during my friend's reading about her father is that her father could not attend the reading because he was currently surrounded by ethereal beings who were assisting him in this healing process and surrounding him with special healing light. He was not able to comment at that time. However, they did say that his intention was to become a spiritual mentor or teacher to her in her life when she was ready and when he was ready. They also said that her father, as in the personality of her father, was not yet in a place where he can begin to intervene quite yet, but his soul consciousness is what moves through her at this time. Spirit also said that her father was waiting for a time where she was feeling more settled and grounded before he began to make appearances for her, i.e., showing her more frequently that he is there. Then they said something so simple, but so powerful. Spirit went on to say that right now, it was really, really important for her to take care of herself, to allow herself to grieve, to hold herself in compassion and gentleness, and to experience all of the emotions, to just be. They said they wished for her not to be so focused on hearing from her father at this moment and at this time, because they assured her that she would hear from him. And then they said, right now, it's not about him. It's about you. So you might be thinking, how is it about her when her father just passed away? Shouldn't we be throwing all of our love, compassion, and attention to our past loved ones and their souls? How dare we make this about us? And then they said something phenomenal. They said that they wished for her to know that it is her, that it is you who suffers infinitely more in the physical realm and in the human form than the soul who has transcended beyond the physical realm and out of the human form. They no longer experience the intense emotions of grief, separation, and ego consciousness the way you do. They are no longer in pain or feeling pain. It is you who suffers with their transition, not them. Then they said, this is why you must take the time to nurture yourself and not worry about whether or not he is okay, because he is home with source energy, God energy, love frequency, and light consciousness. He is in the safest place he could be right now. He is out of harm's way. He is now healing. So if you're worrying about whether or not your recently passed loved one is okay, I want to offer you this knowledge. Your recently passed loved one is home. They are safe. And they will communicate with you when you are ready for it. Really ready for it. But there is a period of time that you need to adjust to not having their physical presence around you anymore. And this is often the hardest part of the journey. The other interesting thing Spirit said is that once your loved one is in the non-physical form, they do have a different way of communicating with you. Normally, when we talk to each other here on the earth plane, I say something to you, and you respond back to me through speech. It's usually an equal exchange of verbiage, right? But when one of you is here on the earth plane and the other one is on the astral plane, then it becomes a bit different, of course. There's a different way that we are going to communicate with each other. So when my friend asked about getting signs and symbols from her father, they reassured her that she will easily receive them in abundance with time, and that these signs and symbols, also part of the language of divine expression and of our past loved ones, will flow to her naturally and with grace. So what does that really mean? It means that you do not have to go out looking for signs and for symbols. You do not have to hunt them down. All you have to do is be open to receive them when you are ready for them. It's not tit for tat, right? So I don't want you to ever feel like just because you don't get a response right away or in the way that you're hoping to or expecting to, like you would if you were talking face to face with them, that you won't at all. I guarantee you will. And it will come through in so many beautiful ways beyond what you could ever dream up. Spirit then said to her that she would begin to hear from him when she was actually ready to hear from him, and that there is divine timing involved in this process. Even though she desperately wanted to communicate with him, she was not actually ready for that yet. And the reason they say that is because when you are in so much shock, pain, hurt, disbelief, and grief, and you are feeling that distraught feeling, you are most in need of time, space, and healing in that moment and in those moments. Again, you need to tend to yourself first because you are the one who is suffering right now. You need that time to process all of those initial thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and God knows that can take time. You need time to gather your strength back. When you are in this very intense state, you're not as open to begin communicating yet, even if you think you are. The channels are not very clear yet. Then, when you become increasingly ready over time, you will likely start to pick up on those little signs, symbols, or synchronicities from your past loved ones. So the guidance is, take your time to heal. Water your garden first. Take care of yourself. Hold space for yourself. Get the help you need. Trust that your loved one is safe and at home and out of harm's way now. Know that you are always connected to them. Trust and surrender. Give yourself the time to adjust to this new way of relating to them and connecting to them while they're in the astral plane. And know that it's just different now, but not non-existent. When the time is right and when you are ready, you'll communicate again in a different way. So, some tips on how to connect with the consciousness of your recently passed loved one, if you're not yet in contact with their personality or the person you remember they were in your lifetime that you shared with them. The first one that Spirit recommends is to write your past loved ones little love notes or talk to them in your journal or notebook. Spirit says that when you do this, your past loved ones actually receive the energy of what you write out. So when you're able to write out your thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories of them, and so on, it enables your past loved ones to share the love between you still through that medium, so to speak. Spirit has shared this countless times with me, this method of writing to your past loved ones. Then when you write to them, you can see if they respond to you, and they can respond to you in many different ways when you're ready, of course. This is what is in part called divine expression. We can receive divine expression from our spirit guides, from our past loved ones, or from source energy. Okay? So write to them. The second one is to activate your physical senses by associating them with something you remember them by. So if they had a particular interest, passion, hobby, for example, that had a certain scent, a flavor, sound, sight, feeling, etc. An example might be a favorite food, perfume, or cologne, something that you can identify with one of your senses and then integrate that with a memory of them, and then experience that as often as you can. So for example, I have a grandparent who is quite present around me who loved tea, and he always drank regular orange pekoe tea. So the scent of that tea always reminds me of him, and it makes me smile whenever I make tea. Or the smell of paint, because he loved to paint. He also loved Frank Sinatra, the singer. So I can't not think of him when I hear Frank Sinatra. And sometimes a Frank Sinatra song will just pop into my head and I know it's him saying hello. So that's just a few ways that I connect with my past loved one who happens to be my grandparent, who is quite involved in my life. The third one is to just straight up ask them for a sign. And then trust you'll get it, and then let it go. Again, you don't have to look for signs. You don't ever have to force the sign to show up for you. You just have to receive them openly when you're ready. This is the same thing as working with your spirit guides, by the way. And know that signs can show up in a variety of ways and in different shapes or forms. So if I asked, "Hey, Grandpa, can you send me a robin to let me know you're here with me?" And then I turn on the TV and there's a scene of a park with a robin in it, then that would be communication, for example. So you really have to open up your awareness, open up your eyes to receive divine expression. You need to be very open-minded. So go ahead and pick one of these action items or tips and try them out and see what happens. Be open to the magic and miracles of the spirit realm. Open your eyes and your awareness to the beauty of life all around you. Know that it's there, communicating with you all of the time. Your loved ones are there and waiting for you. That's all I have for you today. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed this episode and that it has brought you some level of reassurance, peace, and comfort, and has helped you understand that you're not alone. Please keep all of this wisdom and insight from the spirit realm close to your heart today. Have a beautiful day, take care, and start talking to your loved ones in spirit like you would to anyone else, because they are listening and they are there. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode and for listening to the Conscious Her podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here and a part of our community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you subscribe and share it on your social media channels with your spiritual soul sisters, friends, family, and network. Chances are, if this resonated with you, it will for them too. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm here to help. You can email me at hello@theconsciousher.com, and I may even use your question or topic of discussion for a future podcast episode. If you want daily support for your highly sensitive soul, please visit me over on Instagram at @theconsciousher. If you're interested in working with me, visit www.theconsciousher.com and be sure to subscribe to my mailing list. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that our purpose here is to heal ourselves and to serve others. And together, you and I can help more people. If you would please leave a positive review for this podcast on iTunes, I'd be so eternally grateful for your support. Thank you and have a great day.